Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are here with another SPFBOX semi-finalist live chat. And Craig, it is so good to have you on. Congratulations for making it to the semifinals.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. I am so excited. I know. What was it like when you found out? Like, how did you find out that you made semi-finalist pick?
So I saw the post. I've been following the Facebook group and kind of like looking through and reading reviews and stuff. And so I saw that Queen's Book Asylum had posted a thing, and I knew that True was my judge. And then I got nervous, and I looked, and honestly, the I try not to read reviews. I got to a place where it was starting to mess with my head, so I was like, I don't know if I want to read it, but I read it anyway, and I was like, I don't know if they liked it.
Oh,
So I thought, and I mean, like totally fine, but I just like I kind of got the impression from reading through the review that maybe it wasn't, a hit for them, and so maybe they had gone a different direction. So it was like a double surprise when it got to the end, and they had picked my book as the semifinalist. But yeah, I kind of did the thing you're probably not supposed to do, and I was watching.
yeah,
And
well, it's
that's
actually
how I
good
did
because I know that there's a lot of different strategies. And when we were getting ready to launch into SPFBO back when we were doing the Blitz,
it.
I was
Mm-hmm.
asking everybody, do you have a strategy going in? And
Mm,
I think a lot of people were like, I'm just not going to look at it. I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to come back. But I'm one of those people that would just be looking, It's like, am I cut?
yeah.
I don't mind. Either cut me or whatever, but just know and move on.
Yeah. I've been trying to like stay as participatory, I wasn't letting myself um watch it like a hawk, but I don't want to be hands off and like not talk with anybody or, be present. So I've been trying to be at least enough around to like things and see what people are doing. People do such like this, they do such cool things for the community. I don't want to not support that.
Yeah, yeah. So, for those who are tuning in and have no idea what this is or what this means, the Self Published Fantasy Blog Off is organized by author Mark Lawrence every year. This is the 10th year, and 300 authors throw their books in the ring for brutal yet honest critiques by well known bloggers in the indie fantasy community, and not just indies. Some of these are bloggers who do trad books as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah.
Um, but all the books competing are indie, and of those 300, each blog gets to put forward some as semifinalists. And so that is where we are right now. The first 300 people are being read through, and semifinalists are being chosen, and the rest are being cut. And then the semifinalists will progress and go on to the second round for finalist choosing. But why don't you tell everybody who's meeting you for the first time a little bit about what A Circle of Stars is about, what flavor of fantasy it is?
Oh, sure. And this is the book, The Circle of Stars.
I
So
love your
this,
cover so much.
thank you. I do too. Yeah, it's young adult fantasy. I say that it leans upper YA. It's a 18 and 19-year-old protagonists. Um, it's about coming of age and first love, but it's also about political intrigue and the downfalls of gerontocracy and kind of, I don't know, I tried to sort of look at the political issues that we're familiar with today from the opposite lens of like what would it look like if these issues were coming from a socialistic angle instead of a capitalistic one, because I felt like it gave me room to say things without being extremely pointed. um, so yeah, and it's got a magic system based off of astrology, which
Ooh.
readers have really enjoyed, and um, I think is a lot of fun. Your birth sign, your star sign, sun sign, is the one that kind of attributes the sort of magical power you have access to. And our lead character, he's a chosen one. He's born on the exact right time of the movements of the universe, where he has access to all 12 signs. So being born on Earth, he is unaware of this because we don't have enough of the magical power here to use the abilities. But there's a group of people on the other side of the universe who are very in tune, and they come and they pluck him from Earth and take him over to their planet. Slash, they live in a city inside the moon. That's where they inhabit. So they bring him over there to be their kind of like it's weird. He's the chosen one, but he's kind of actually just like a political pawn. So they bring him there to like power play with him, and he's kind of got to figure out how to live in that world and what it means to like be special and have powers, but also not be on Earth and all the things, and figure out what he
Mhm.
wants.
Yeah. And I was going to ask, I know the cover looks like it's got some science fantasy elements in it. Would
Yeah.
you call it that science fantasy or not as
Yeah,
much?
a lot of readers say that it reads almost more like science fiction than it does like fantasy. I mean, the genres get super blended these days, and
I
it's
love a
also,
good science fantasy.
yeah. Uh, I liken it a lot to like Star Wars, but for gay people.
Hmm. Hmm.
And the same way that Star Wars is, it's a fantasy. It's not actually science fiction. There's no,
Right, right.
yeah. So
Yeah, if it was coming out today, it'd make the shelf over there with fantasy, I think, a lot more because of
yeah.
the magic that can't be explained with science and everything.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
thanks so much, David.
That's so kind. I appreciate that so much.
So the it's really interesting to see the representation too. We talked about this in our finalist interviews from SPFBO 9, the
Mm-hmm.
LGBTQ recommendation, and how there's been a broad, like diverse stretch of books entered the last
Yeah.
couple years,
Yeah.
and really good quality books.
Hmm.
Do you feel any pressure knowing that you're like carrying the torch for here's good diverse LGBTQ fiction within the
Uh,
indie community?
yeah. I mean, I think we always, I guess I'd say I feel lucky to be in this era where I kind
Mhm.
of feel like I'm in a second wave of queer fiction that's really being loved and accepted in the indie space, because it gives me a little bit more freedom in my own personal like body experience to not feel like I need to have perfect representation.
Mhm.
um I did, I did try to be very intentional and sensitive about the identities that I do explore and have on the page, and I tried to be broad as well to make sure that as many people as I could successfully help see themselves on the page,
Mhm.
to give them that space to, even if it's the side character, just to be able to nod and say like, oh, I can exist in this world too.
Yeah.
That was important to me. So I guess I'm not letting myself feel that pressure that you were talking
I
about.
love that though, because it's like you look at it almost like it's an honor I get to represent
It
instead of
is.
the pressure of, oh, I have to
Yeah.
represent.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. And probably a big part of that too is the narrative of this is like solidly centered in my own lens of, a gay man.
Mhm.
And so that also helps me feel comfort because I'm not really trying to explore anything in the broader sense of the queer community. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that. I think
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
a good thing to explore those things. But um, yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So when you were talking about signs and everything, is there a quiz or anything where people can go and be like, "What would I be in this
Oh,
world?"
that would be really fun. I guess the only issue is that it's by your birth sign. So, like, if what month are you born, or what's your sign?
Yeah, like I'm a Leo.
A Leo. Okay, so like, there's well, I can't go into anyway. There's secrets in the magic, and so in some context there is some things, but for anyone who hasn't picked up the book, it's a plot issue if I explain it. But for Leos, I can explain to you what your power would be. Leos use, so ether is the stardust, that it's like the kind of magical substance in the universe that humans can use to conjure power. Leos use that ether to strengthen their body, but they also can generate heat. So basically the flashy cool part of it is they can make their limbs so energetic that they like burn bright orange, and they like can generate enough heat to like attack, or like one of the main characters, she's a chef and she uses those powers to like cook and heat her
Oh,
materials.
wow.
And then they can also like super focus it into like a very precise laser for like long distance attacks and stuff. Leos are really good
Wow.
warriors.
What a cool magic system.
Yeah.
So are you a planner then?
Um, I'm kind of like a plancer, like I'm very meticulous in role building to be like planned out and to think about things, but I'm a character forward writer. I story really comes to me through discovery. And so as much as I try to plot out and think about where I'm going, if the characters don't lead me there, I can't write it. I wish I was the writer who could just be like, I'm just going to plot down and put down those words and they're going to go there. But I really have to feel the character move for me to be able to actually like, generate words. It's very
Yeah.
frustrating.
It's their story. They're going to have it told the way they want it.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So we talked a little bit about the plan going into SPFBO, but
Mm-hmm.
now you're already getting a lot of well-deserved love for A Circle of Stars.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have in the works right now going forward now that you've hit semi-finalist status? What other books are in the works for you? Is this going to turn into a big series?
So this is a duology. I've
Oh, I
had
love duologies.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have book 2 written. I just got back my dev edits about a month ago, so I'm working on my revision plan and getting stuff in order. I was really wanting to publish this fall, but I am not a fast worker. If I try and push myself, I tend to clam up and things just don't come. And it's so important to me to like give this story the time and attention it needs and breathing space to like really get it to where I want it to be. So I don't have a confirmed date. Right now, it's looking like maybe spring, just as my loose, far away feeling, just so my heart can rest.
Yeah.
But I am working on it, and I honestly, I don't have a ton of work to do. Thanks, David. Yeah, and I'm really excited because book 2 is cool. It's really cool, and I want people to be able to read it.
That's what I really love about duologies, and I say this both as an author and a reader. The
Mm-hmm.
middles in like trilogies can start to sag, and it's
Yeah.
like I just sort of want to get there. There's
Mm-hmm.
some series that do it really well, but I struggle to do it really
Oh,
well. And when
I
you have
get
a
that.
duology, it's like super exciting beginning, super exciting ending.
Yeah.
What are we gonna see next?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, and if anybody's watching, you haven't grabbed A Circle of Stars yet, or you haven't followed Craig yet, I've got Craig's links in the description box. So you can go ahead and pick up book 1 and then follow Craig to find out when book 2 is coming out as it gets closer.
Yeah.
But as far as book 1 goes, and we
Mm-hmm.
talked about characters a little bit back in the Blitz, which of the characters was the most fun for you to write in book
Ooh.
1?
I think it has to be Talia. Um, well, yeah, no, I'm gonna say Talia. She was the character that surprised me because I didn't plan for her. She showed up as a side character in Helix's point of view. So Casper's from Earth. Helix is sort of an established Nepo baby, is what I call him. He's the grandson of the governess of this magical city. There are 2 leads. They're the main romance point of views. And then Talia was just a friend of Helix's, a connection of his. And while I was working in the story, she kind of had more in her than I was expecting, and she ended up being a really, for me, I feel like a necessary third point of view, because she gives sort of the underdog, the disenfranchised view of what's going on in this world and why there are problems. Because it would be easy to think that it's like this utopia, and I think without her experience being on the page, the reader wouldn't have as much of an understanding of like how much pain is being like exacted on people,
Yeah.
because Helix is so close to the power, and the people who are making those decisions. So she ended up being really fun. It was really cool to explore the world from that point of view and to have a little bit more freedom about where she could go and what kind of things she could see.
Mhm.
It was a lot of fun to write.
That's, that's amazing. Yes. I love adventurous characters in books, and I feel bad because there's so many SPFBO
Oh my
finalists
gosh.
and semi-finalists that I'm like working through a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. So I've got like my started and not finished yet TBR.
Mm-hmm.
Just so
Mm-hmm.
so I'm glad that you're not spoiling anything because I'm not to the end of the
Yeah.
yet. But which one of the characters was the hardest to write by
Hmm.
contrast?
That's a good question. I don't. I don't know if I really had any like significant difficulty with them. Casper was adamant. Like I couldn't not write Casper the way that he showed up. So I guess I would say he was my easiest, which would make Helix my hardest. And I did have Helix is so much more enwrapped in the politics, and especially just because of his goals and his desires to be involved in them, he had to care more. So it took a lot more meticulous thought about not only like what his goals are, but like what are his points of view of the world. What does he think, and what are his hopes, and what has he studied? I had to think a lot more intensely about his internal world and like how he would see things if he grew up the way that he did. So that it was more work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But sometimes those are the deepest, best characters, right? The ones
Mm-hmm.
that make us work the hardest.
Yeah.
Oh, so if you had to go back and do something different looking at the beginning of SPFBO, whether it was this book or the social side and community side, for authors who are watching or thinking about doing it next year,
Mm-hmm.
what would you recommend?
That's a good question. Um, I would say like don't be afraid. Maybe. I was really excited. So I published just after the window last year, so I couldn't enter for last year. So I was looking forward to it this year.
This has been a
And
year in the making.
yeah, uh, but I have noticed, I guess there's, especially from the authors who like made it into this batch, there's still kind of a timidness that we bring of like, do I deserve to be here? Do I want this attention? Like it's a little, it can be alarming. And I don't know, we put so much work and love and care into our books, and I think we should all be as excited as possible to try and get them noticed and get them, in front of people, and to not feel apologetic about that. Because I mean, especially this year, it was a lottery system. So, there was people who entered who just like didn't even get a chance. And I think it would be a shame to not take as much advantage of as you can of having that opportunity. So
Yeah,
yeah, just don't be afraid, and like be excited and let yourself enjoy it. And there might be disappointment, but like I don't know, not everything is about winning. You know.
exactly. And that's one thing that's absolutely true across the board is the reviewers go to so much effort to
Mm-hmm.
give great feedback. And when I say
Yeah.
great feedback, I don't mean like the book is perfect and flawless, but like
No.
really thoughtful,
Yes.
actionable feedback. And
Yeah.
as an author, that's something you don't get a lot, even in like paid contests. So to
Mm,
walk out of SPFBO with the community that we
mhm,
have and the connection with the readers, but also that feedback that helps make our work better and getting to see what works, because I noticed you said earlier that you got your feedback from your dev editor on book 2.
mhm,
And when we talked to the finalists in the interview panels for them last month, a couple months ago, most of them had said, that they got their books fully edited, they were polished. It's one of the things that I was sort of taking note of, that these are people who very intentionally polished these books to be the best they possibly could with
mm,
the means they had. I'm curious to know how much editing and stuff went into A Circle of Stars.
yeah. So I took it very seriously. I mean, not that I think that people who don't go through
Right, right.
professional means don't take their stuff seriously, but I basically viewed it as I didn't want to pursue traditional publishing because I'm a slow writer. I'm anxious about deadlines. I worked in the
Mm,
corporate world for 10 years. The thought of attaching the corporate world to my creative process gave me a lot of anxiety.
mm,
So I removed that as an option just because I didn't want it. And then when I thought about moving into indie publishing, I was like, well, I still want to go through all of the steps. I want to do basically what would be happening through a traditional publishing house just for myself. So I had a developmental edit, a line edit, a copy edit, and a proofread. Um, and
wow.
I know that looking back, I know that a lot of people will choose maybe one or two, and
Hmm.
I think that that's doable. I think I needed the help. By the time I got to my copy edit, I actually didn't get a lot of feedback back from that editor. I think the manuscript was fairly polished by that point.
But it
So
helps you find your groove. Like,
yeah,
get
I
it
mean,
all done the first
it
book,
helped
and
me
in the
feel
future, you
confident.
can be like, I can self edit from this point, right?
Yeah. And it helped me feel confident as a debut. I mean, it was definitely an investment. You know, I was very privileged to be in a position where I could hire out help and provide that for my manuscript. But I didn't want to put my first book out there and then I know like for my own brain, if I were to find out that it was like subpar or I had just like really messed something up, it would mess me up. Like I would have a hard time moving forward in my career. So I
Mm,
needed to put forward my best step that was like accessible to me. So that way I'd be like, it's never, no book is perfect. It's not perfect, but it's the best I could do at the time.
yeah.
And, and that was really important to me to know that like I could move into my next book with confidence and like grow as I go.
And as a result, everybody loves it too. The heart shines through. I mean, we always improve as writers across the board. And
Sure.
I've been fortunate enough to get to edit for people for years and picking up books that they're writing now that 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, you have no idea how much you've grown as an author
Sure.
in the last
Yeah.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, I love that you know, were there, you did the due diligence, you can refine from there.
Hmm.
And as someone who did the opposite and was like, I just want to get my book out, the very
Yeah.
first book I ever published was filled with editing stuff because I was
Hmm.
wrongfully thinking, oh, well, I'm an editor. I don't need
Oh, sure.
editing for my book. Well, you can't edit your own book that way. You
Yeah.
autocorrect those errors, or a lot of us editors can't. So we hire editors for our books.
Yeah.
So I would echo what Craig says. If you're a newer author, you're thinking about launching a debut, you're thinking about SPFBO or not,
Hmm.
it never hurts if you can to connect with editors to some degree, because then it is going down. Like, people pick up your book and they can love your story, but if it's riddled with the errors that mine was, it then takes away, and then you're starting over and restarting that process. So
Yeah.
learn from the semi-finalist.
Yeah. And
Polish
don't,
that piece.
the other thing I'd say is like, the more I've gotten involved in the indie community, the more I've seen how we show up for each other.
Yeah.
And there's always this big conversation about, the means, like who has money and who doesn't have money. But there's a really big bartering situation in the indie community where you can barter services. You can do a beta read for someone to do your dev edits. Um, it, it's a good idea to try and make friends and network that way, because you can sometimes get your book fully edited like very well for no money, as if you just are willing to trade some of your time and your own skills.
Yeah, yeah. This community is amazing, and we don't
I
bite much.
agree.
Oh, so Craig, I'm super excited. I know we are almost at the half hour. The Queen's Book Asylum is fantastic, and they do super thorough reviews. I was so
Mhm.
excited chosen. So thank you to the Queen's Book Asylum team. If any of you guys are watching, I linked them in the description box too. They are the blog that Craig's book was assigned to, along with 29 other books. And they have
Mhm.
the hard choice of who moves on as semifinalists and then who moves on as finalists with
Yeah.
the other 9 blogs or blog teams assigned for this year. So
Mhm.
go ahead and check them out if you want to read the full review they did for A Circle of Stars. Thank you so much, everybody, and thank you, Craig. Good
Yeah,
luck.
thanks so much. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.